Hey everybody, welcome back to NickyT Live. I'm your host Nick Taylor, and today I'm hanging out with Gant Laborde. How you doing, Gant?
Good. Hey, doing fantastic. How's everybody doing out there in the virtual verse?
Hopefully they're
Good.
doing well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're a little quiet in the multiverse, but oh man,
Raise your digital hands.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I guess before we get started, because we got all kinds of stuff to talk about today. I've known
Awesome.
you for quite a while now from
Yeah.
virtual coffee, and I actually got to hang with you when I used to work at Dev 2, and
Hmm.
actually had the privilege of seeing you in person finally last year at Render ATL, which we're going to talk about
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, no, thanks again for coming on. I know you're super busy, and so it's always appreciated. But I gotta say, I always love chatting with you or like hearing one of
uh,
your talks. So,
Thank you.
but for folks who might not know who you are, do you mind giving the quick lowdown of who the
Whew.
wizard is?
Oh yeah. All right. Hello, everybody. Let's see. So I was born a long, long time ago at a very young age. It's, I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, which it's really hard to be a nerd in New Orleans. I was originally I got like a little Nintendo system and I'd play. I was just so excited. It was just this weird moment where I was able to like kind of control the screen. And
Okay.
this is the classic NES. Like I didn't even know what I was doing. Right, I couldn't even beat the most basic games, but I just loved it. I used to like grab the controller and pretend I could control people on TV, things like that, because you have this sort of like TV was your world. And I know all the
Yeah.
youngins are like, oh yeah, watching TV is interesting. Like we could throw on Netflix, but you don't understand like when you had nothing, there was no internet, like you were just into the TV. And then my
Yeah.
dad's company had a computer, had like a little laptop, and I got the laptop, which I shouldn't be on, and I went into QBasic and made it say "Hello Gant," and that was it. I was just like, "All right,
Okay.
I love this world. I'm able to actually make things happen. I could make my own games. I could make my own stuff." And that kick-started the nerd New Orleans, basically.
Okay.
Nobody else cared. Nick, it was very lonely for a very long time. I would make
I
my
hear
own like encryption algorithms, my own apps, and things
it.
like that.
Oh wow.
It was fun. It was just like kind of like I could make all these cool things happen instantaneously. But what
Okay.
ended up happening is I started like finding my group, right? I started finding people who
Yeah.
were like nerdy and stuff like that. And then I wound up writing, doing open source and writing a book on an old
Okay.
Ruby programming languages for mobile phones called Ruby Motion. Going to conferences. So, like in 2012, I started to change my world and going to different conferences, visiting different cities, meeting people who are just as excited about technology as I was, and
Okay.
continuing to work with them in sort of this open source capacity. And it's
Yeah.
just this huge connective nerd moment. Open source isn't even, I talk about like how cool TV used to be,
Yeah.
and now we talk about like how cool open source kind of used to be as well. Like it's just it connected people. You would meet somebody, you'd see them in the same pull requests, you talk
Hmm.
to them. It was just so fun and friendly. And I wound up meeting a lot of people through open source, including now my business partners.
Yeah.
And originally, Todd Worth had a company called Infinite Red with no space in the middle. It was just Infinite
Okay.
Red. Jamin Holmgren had a company called Clearsight Studios in Portland. And then I had a company called Iconoclast Labs in New Orleans. And we all met in Paris in 2015 for a conference, started talking about our future. Fast
Okay.
forward a lot. Um, I've been coding now for over 20 years. I have two fantastic business partners and the best React Native company in the entire world, Infinite Red, which has a space at Infinite Space Red, brand new company
Okay.
formed in 2015. So, for this adventure, since then, I've just been traveling the world, speaking about different cool technology, about mobile, about AI. And
Yeah.
as you know, like you said, I'm busy, but it's hard to think of it as work sometimes. Of course, everything, even like just being in a wonderful relationship can be work sometimes. but almost every day I have the gratitude that I get to be on cool chats like this. I get to talk to people
Yeah,
about
everyone.
amazing technology, and that little lonely nerd from New Orleans from a long, long time ago now has friends all over the world that want to talk about cool stuff. So
No, that's
that's me.
awesome. No, that's super cool, and, yeah, open source has opened so many doors for me as well, and
Yeah.
it's it's kind of funny, like, I worked, well, not funny, but, like, I worked in closed source until about
Hmm.
20 May 2016. I was typically working in .NET shops, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and it was great, and it was a great experience, and but at the time, like, I had this opportunity because I ended up doing React and TypeScript, like, in the early days, like, 2015, so, like, a
Hmm.
so, like, you know, which definitely was an arc that definitely helped my career, but it was a time where I was always a fan of JavaScript, and I really wanted to start contributing to open source and .NET,
Yeah.
at least at the time, because like a lot's changed in .NET. I don't know if you follow it all, but like
Oh
it's
yeah.
all
Yeah.
open source now, and like
Yeah.
a million things have changed, and so you
Yeah.
know, but it's, you know, I was doing primarily C sharp at the time and ASP.NET stuff, and great language, C sharp, but yeah, like at that
Yeah.
time, I just wanted to move into open source, and TypeScript, React, Node.js was the way to go for me, at least. So
Yeah. That's the story of like we've changed it. We like by open source and sort of like the community coming together, having that want, having that need, we changed the terrain for what was
yeah,
successful for Microsoft. If you remember, Microsoft, we had the bomber days of we are a monopoly, we dominate, we do these
yeah,
things, you come to us, we won't work with you,
yeah,
and that created an ecosystem that the developers weren't happy with. And you're kind
hmm,
of, I guess, almost like a poster boy for this story, in a sense that you're in the .NET world. It's all closed off, and then you say, no, I want to share my work. I want to have meaningful impact in the world, not just for this one client. I want to have
yeah,
some kind of significance. I want to have some kind of connection as well. And through that, you find open source. And then with us all going to that, Microsoft had to change their tune
yeah,
and start to go meet developers where they are. If you take a look at VS Code or other plugins or anything like that. They've gone
yeah,
and connected in with other people's tools and saying like we're going to be happy to be like Switzerland for you because this is
yeah,
where we can actually make some kind of meaningful impact. And so
yeah,
yeah,
totally.
that works out really nice. I think that you're probably one of the people who helped change that path for Microsoft and has made them extremely successful for realizing that and changing their direction.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, honestly, if they were open source at the time when I had moved, I probably wouldn't have moved because
Yeah,
I would have been able to get in. And but yeah, no, hat tip to them for going open source, even if you know, for whatever reasons, could be, it's good for business, I think, honestly, but I still think it's a great thing for the ecosystem. And there's
yeah,
a lot of things that even came out of it, like newer devs aren't aware of these things potentially, but like async await came from C sharp, you know, and
yeah,
like
yeah.
TypeScript, Anders is the one that created C sharp and TypeScript. Like there's a
Hmm.
lot of cross pollination that happened, and that I don't think would have happened if that's like TypeScript hadn't been open source, maybe, because that's like
Right.
it just advanced the whole JS ecosystem, you know, not just TypeScript, but
Is very important. Think about it. They went ahead and had to bring Google in. So everybody was writing their own sort of type-safe JavaScript for a while, and to the point
yeah,
that
yeah,
Dart was and still is somehow a language.
yeah,
What happens here is that when Angular was looking for type safety, Microsoft reached out and said, "No, no, 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 no. Like, what can we add to TypeScript for you
yeah,
to continue and want to use this? Let us maintain it for you. Let us figure out those problems and solve it for you." And in that reach out is why TypeScript is the winner over Facebook's like Flow
yeah.
or Dart.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, because I think at one point, well, there was Dart, and there was also like there was like a TypeScript version from Google. I think it was called ATS or something. I can't remember what it was, but
Ooh,
this was like because like there's like some history where like because the last time I did Angular was like 1.4.3, I
Oh,
think.
yep,
This is
yep, yep,
like
yep.
so then there's the I don't know, the dramatic great divide of Angular 2.0 going all in on
Hmm.
TypeScript. And
Yeah.
I think I think before they did that, yeah, I think it was ATS, but there was
I.
definitely Dart, but there was this other like client side part that they were doing, and
Hmm.
I think they just said, "Hey, Microsoft, you're doing a better job to what you were
Yep.
saying." Like, and
Yeah, I think, well, Microsoft reached out as far as I remember, and kind of talking to people who actually formed TypeScript and made it popular. They
yeah,
they reached out and said, "What can we do?" And that's just think about that. When you used to work in Microsoft systems and you used to
yeah,
remember how it was like, "Hey, did you want to be able to do this code? Well, that'll cost you an extra $1,000 a year to get access to
yeah,
these custom plugins and modules and things like that." It was
yeah,
nickel and dimey. It was disgusting. I'm
yeah,
not a big fan of companies that'll sort of hold on to progress for every single penny that they're owed. You know, it
yeah,
doesn't feel right. Nobody wants to invest in something like that. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, no, and Microsoft's got some great people there too.
Oh yeah.
Stewarding all the open
Absolutely.
source, like
Yeah.
Scott Hanselman, I
Yeah.
David
Scott's
Fowler,
awesome.
and then there's even Miguel Icaza. I think that's how you say his last name.
Hmm.
Like, but basically, there's like definitely a ton of people that are like for it. And I not that we're really talking about C Sharp today, but I remember something last year or maybe it was a year and a half ago when they were trying to close source something or do
Hmm.
something in one of the projects, and like there was so much backlash from open source, and people like Scott were saying like, no, we shouldn't do this, and then and like it
Yeah.
ended up being like the net positive, which not net positive, but they basically just kept it the way it was. I can't remember specifically what it is, so
Oh yeah.
but yeah, and
Microsoft was the first offer of one of the big companies that. So I've been offered many jobs from many big companies, and it was the that was the very first one. That was my first hard no to
okay,
stay with Infinite Red. It was at Coder Cruise, which was a really cool
okay,
conference idea, and they had a lot of the Microsoft open source team on there. It was
okay,
super cool. And at the time, I was working for helping bring React Native to Windows.
okay,
So if your listeners are just as a thing here, React Native is a sort of this idea of platform independence, set of APIs to go work for not only iOS and Android, but Windows, Mac, Apple
mm-hmm.
TV, VR, all those other kinds of things. Is that you're essentially to try to reuse the most amount of code possible. And so what happened is I was significantly improving the Windows version of React Native.
Okay,
And that's when I was on the Coder Cruise with them. And we had a conversation. I was like, this is super awesome. Y'all are a great company. You just caught me like a decade too late. I absolutely love where I work and I love the people I work with. So sorry.
yeah,
It was a very interesting moment for me. It told me a lot about what I want and what's going to
yeah,
happen out there. And I think that's one of the cool things about software is that it pays well, well, at least well enough for people to kind of let go of the concerns that happen, at least to up a certain point. You can actually get into the point where you get to just make choices about what you want to do with your money. Below a certain point, people just have to try to survive the day, try to make sure that they're not going to get
yeah, yeah,
crushed. But software developers are paid well. And so we get faced with this really crazy question is that with this freedom, like you're out
mm-hmm.
of the rat race early. Yeah, sure, you're still working, but you kind of just get to choose how you want to work and what you want to do. And you see people like working from cruise ships, working
Yeah,
from Disney, like having all kinds of fun adventures. But it brings the question in earlier, and I think that that's one of the reasons why I love the tech community. It's like we ask the questions that other people don't even get the time to ask. We think about diversity and inclusion. We think about accessibility. We think about who we want to surround ourselves with and what our objectives
mm-hmm.
are. And I think that that power is the same thing that I was talking about a moment ago that makes the developers the people that can change the platform for
Oh yeah,
entire large companies like Microsoft. Because if all the developers want it to happen, it
yeah.
kind of happens.
Yeah, and that's a really also just a cool thing about open source. Like, I
Mhm.
remember just like when I worked at Dev too, like one of the first things I was tasked to do was like they have a homepage feed, and I converted it into Preact because we use Preact
Mhm.
there. But basically, it was my first big feature. I had been contributing prior to that for like 2 years,
Yeah.
but oh, just saying hello in the chat. Thanks for joining us, Violated Sign. Oh, hey
Mhm.
Chris, how you doing, man? Chris
Oh
Jarvis is
yeah,
in the
I've been
chat.
ignoring the chat this whole time. My apologies.
Oh no, it's all good. It's that's something that people don't realize sometimes when people live stream, especially when you're streaming to multiple platforms. Like you're talking, then you're like looking over
Oh
there and
yeah,
seeing what's going on in the chat and stuff. So it's
yeah.
but what the heck was I saying? I lost my train of thought. It'll
So
come back. Uh,
yeah, I think before we get pulled into the chat, we're just talking about how you have control
oh
over,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was saying yeah. So like one of the things I found really cool was like at Dev too, it's a blogging platform, which I know most people in the chat probably know what it is, but
Mhm.
the impact I had by like it just felt really cool when that got merged that literally millions of people are using my code like literally every day.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this having this feeling too when I worked at Netlify because like I was working on the frameworks team, so like we made changes that affected literally anybody that deploys a site,
yeah,
and there's the Spider-Man uncle, great responsibility obviously, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
Uncle
a cool
Ben.
feeling. Yeah, yeah. But to your point about like just making change, like imagine if you improved something in like a framework used by everybody on the planet, like I don't know, you improved something to make it more accessible or you increase the performance. It's like literally everybody benefits from that, and that's the kind of things
Yeah,
you don't see in closed source.
yeah. And it
So
cuts both ways, right?
yeah,
If if you don't do a good job at something, everybody's going to tell you, right? But one of the things that I found, and so one of the things, if you've ever seen me talk, especially like my talk last year at Render and such, I talk about
yeah,
democratized AI and the concept, and it's part of the same sort of initiative that I look for here. Is
yeah,
that like if you know there's a team of people and they're just performing magic and all the developers just go like, oh wow, woo, like, oh, enjoy your PhD, but those are the people changing the world and the developers aren't
yeah,
involved in that, then what ends up happening is it's very easy for them to keep just a few people out of that room where the decisions are made. You see, this is where
hmm,
you see weaponized AI, you see extreme bias in AI without actually like, oh, maybe we should test this on different people of different religions, outfits, and
yeah,
facial color. Like maybe we should do a few things here. And it's like those people aren't in the room to make those decisions. So what ends up happening is that people will optimize in those decision rooms for profit. And that's the one that, man, that kills me. Because,
yeah,
like, you know, we have this beautiful, free, and amazing internet, that just we're
hmm,
lucky enough to have a bunch of nerds get together and start creating. And then businesses like kind of came to it. And we've
yeah,
made, we saw, the mobile world, which just had one person dev teams just going in there, building a cool app, making a living off
yeah.
of it. So cool, right?
It's
And
super
then you've
wild.
got like this, you've got a new world right now, right? Where um, you've got a model that costs $12 million to train, and it's a couple of people in a room, and no one actually has access to it. And you see
Hmm.
people trying to stop access to the open source. For instance, with image generation,
Yeah,
that wasn't meant to be leaked, right? Like you were supposed to have, we weren't supposed to be having the best image generation and software being open source, but we
okay,
have it, and now it is, right? So
yeah,
we're able to make the most beautiful generated images and such. But well, on the other side of it, we really don't have that with language models. We don't have that with a whole bunch of other breakthroughs that are happening. They're behind these sort of walls, and open AI is anything but open now. So those things worry me. I'm like, grab your pitchfork, developers. It's time. Let's go get
yeah,
our
yeah,
open source. Let's do this. What we did with Microsoft and any other companies before that didn't really appreciate the idea that we should be in those rooms and that it should be like a concept that we all work on together.
okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
There's
I'll get off
um
my soapbox here.
No, 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 it's all good.
Okay,
This
I'll get
brings
back
up
on it.
like I know you're big into AI. Like when I was obviously I mean it's you're doing a lot of stuff with mobile like with React Native and AI, but
Yep.
AI in general. You're an accomplished author. I've got the book.
Mhm.
It's in my on my desk
Yeah.
right now. But
It's holding your
uh
table from
yeah,
leaning.
exactly. Yeah.
It's perfect.
It,
Wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, it's left pad for my desk.
Yes, right.
Um
I've been told it's the perfect book. It's actually a really good
yeah.
book. We're joking,
Yeah.
internet people.
There's I'm I'm actually just looking in the chat for
Yeah.
YouTube, and somebody commented 9 days ago because like I posted like I
Oh
prepped a little
wow.
bit and
Yeah.
just go up to, and I'm not sure who this is, but they're called the Tony 2313, and I'm assuming they're referencing you. This man is responsible for my entire career of 8 years when I found his
Oh.
filter map reduce videos. I'm so excited
Oh.
for this.
Oh wow.
So
That's amazing.
so and
Wow.
this is the power of open source. This is
Yeah.
the power of just collaborating and putting things out there. And like, uh, it makes me think of something like Scott Hanselman wrote. It's "Are They Worth Your Keystrokes?" And that title sounds a little like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, I don't have time for you," but that's not what the point of his blog post was.
You're
It's
right.
it's like Scott is I've never
Yeah,
met
he's
him,
awesome.
I
You never
but
met him?
like not yet. When I was
What are
working
you
at
doing
Dev,
with
we
your life?
were
He's
doing.
amazing.
eh, I know, and I worked in .NET for so many years. But it's a little different. Like I only started going to conferences last year. Like I because
Ah,
being like prior to working in open source, I never really
yeah.
traveled for stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but he has this blog post about like, are they worth your keystrokes? And what he means is like, and I've met him virtually on Codeland, I think, or but
Yeah.
like he's the kind of person that will 100% probably help everybody, but he has limited time, so that's why he blogs, that's why he does podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
because he can just say, oh yeah, you have a question about that, here's my blog post about it. And it's not to say like I don't want to talk to you or anything, it's like literally doesn't have time, and like it's all
Yeah.
out there, and he's and Kenzie Dodge is like that too.
Yeah.
You've, like, I mean, even your team, yourself, like, I dropped a
Mm-hmm.
link before to, I had Jamin on about a month
Yeah.
and a half ago,
Yeah. Yeah.
for Ignite. Um, so basically, for folks who don't know, like Gant was saying, Infinite Red's like a React Native consulting company or mobile
Yeah.
in general,
Yeah,
and
but basically React Native centric.
yeah,
So
yeah,
what that means is it can leave mobile. If you need an Apple TV app, but you want it in React Native, if you want a web app, but you want it in React Native, we just do all React Native things to share all the code as most as possible. And we're the US React Native company. And we put on a little chance to plug, right? There's some
yeah,
marketing trading coming up. We put on the React Native conference, which is going to be in July in Portland. It's called Chain
yeah.
React, and we have speakers from Meta, Facebook, Amazon, etc.
Okay, no, that's yeah, that's super cool. I checked it out. I did submit a talk, but I've never worked in React Native, so I was just like I YOLO to talk in, like I figured it probably wouldn't get accepted, but
Should
you gotta shoot
definitely,
your shot, right?
yeah, you got
Yeah.
absolutely, and you never know because like there's a bunch of different storylines that wound up being really resonant with the people who read them, and we're getting those
Yeah.
set through. So, well, Nick, if you want to go though, I got a free ticket for you, my friend. So
Oh, cool,
you just
cool.
got to
Yeah,
get
I'll see
yourself
what
to
my schedule
Portland.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But but having said that, like, I started using Ignite because I live stream on, there's
Hmm.
another channel, CFE, that Brian Rinaldi runs. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna dig in, and I didn't make much progress last week when I was
Yeah,
using it, just because like I'm familiar with React, but there was just I was a little slow moving, but it was really nice. There's the CLI where you can just generate like scaffold
yeah.
out stuff, and so I got as far as like I was basically building a collaborative piano because I did this in a web version on Jason
Nice.
Lengstorf's
That's
Four
cool.
Devs One App.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna try and bring Party Kit in with React
Hmm.
Native and just try and do the same thing. So I'm gonna continue on that next month.
Yeah.
Well, in between as well, but yeah, no, all that to say is like Ignite, I'll help
Yeah.
I'll help
Yeah.
self promote your company, but it's
Thank
it's
you.
it, it's a really great boilerplate, and
Yeah.
it's open source obviously, but this is like these are the kinds of things that wouldn't happen without open source. Like your company has
Yeah,
been doing this stuff for years, and I don't
yeah.
know honestly any other React Native companies really, but like I always hear about your name,
Oh yeah,
and
dude, it's so funny how many times we'll meet people and they'll be like, "How many hundred people are in Infinite Red?" Because we
yeah,
hear about you all the time. Like, how, like, are you like 450? Are you just like still like below 400 or something like that? It's like, try below 40. Like, we don't.
yeah, yeah,
So what's really funny is like we're a special ops team, and we stay small on purpose. Honestly,
okay,
we could hire to the moon, right? If we wanted to. The trick is we only hire seniors, and
okay,
we only hire for React Native, and we also everybody knows everybody's first last names, their siblings, like their
okay,
kids. Like once a company is under 50, there's a special deep like well like a as a AI would say a densely connected network of
hmm,
interactions that are possible. And then
yeah,
once you kind of go over 50 employees, you have to kiss that goodbye and you turn into something different, which is
yeah,
I don't have any problem with that. I think that that's actually great. It just doesn't really fit our vision for what we want in Infinite Red. So we
yeah.
will always keep our size as small as possible.
Yeah, I feel that because I've worked at large, mid, and
Hmm.
small companies. Like I used to work at Autodesk, which is like
Hmm.
60,000, I don't know how many.
Yeah.
And but it was kind of unique because our team was basically a startup that got acquired, and we got thrown in their incubator program. So even though we were in
Yeah.
this large company, the team was like a decent size. It was more than 40, but like it was kind of like our own mini company within the company. So I think it was
Yeah.
unique
That's
in
what
that respect.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, and then like where I'm at now, like open sauce, for example, like we're literally four engineers right now, like scrappy and having fun, and like it it's just depends what you want, right? Like not
Yeah.
startup life isn't for everybody, and but I think it's an exciting time when you're a smaller team because you can make so much change with like out red tape, like because
Yeah.
like at Autodesk, it's just the fact that it's a large company. Like I couldn't say like, okay, let's pivot to this or whatever. It's because like there's like all these decisions that have to be made, and
Hmm.
there's like a six layers of onion management, that have to give a thumbs up and another thumbs up, and it's like, and then and then here it's like, oh, well, we'll jump on a Slack huddle or something and just say like, uh, yeah, so you want to do this? Yeah, okay, sounds good, let's do it, and then that might
Yeah.
not be the case, as we expand, but like it's just a different vibe, and it's neither's bad. It's just like I think they're all just great times in the
Yeah.
size of a company. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they have each their benefits and structural like payoffs and stuff. And then look, as far
yeah,
as some companies, their goal, like their mission statement, is to grow and do all kinds of different things, like to be the most impact. You know,
yeah,
whereas ours isn't. It's more quality than quantity.
hmm, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And yeah, and it's kind of funny to your testament about like you all know each other, even though
Hmm.
well, I've met you and Jamin, but like
Yeah.
it's just funny that I know several people from your company, even though
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like that's the kind of vibe it gives off. So
It's
it's
super
pretty
fun
cool.
because what's funny is that people think that for every one person they know at Infinite Red, there must be like 100 people they don't know or something like that. And the truth
Yeah,
is, like you know like a quarter of our people. We're just high impact, like big communicators. It's how you do remote work. It's how you
yeah,
do consulting work, right? So remote work
hmm,
requires that you over communicate and that you over communicate. Also, that you
yeah,
understand asynchronous sort of communication and that you make time for that water cooler chat that happens
yeah,
because that can't happen organically inside of remote work. The second thing is that when you're consulting, you're kind of a teacher, you're kind of an instructor, you're kind of a leader in what's going on there. You mix those things together, and it's just easier to have people with higher profiles because
yeah.
the hardest part that we have is when we put all of us in a room figuring out who's going to talk first. That's the only part. And everybody's really courteous about it, but it's really difficult. We actually have a whole system that we made up on our hands. Like when we start talking over each other, you hold up a finger for I want to talk next. This means I want to talk after that person. And then you subtract down till it's your turn to talk. And we only implement that when we're just too excited and kind of interrupting each other. Now, don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
creative interruption's a good thing, but even
yeah,
in person, we're just standing there like this. Yeah, that's cool. That's good. And then the next
yeah,
person
yeah,
talks, and you're just like, all right, now I'm this person. It's so
yeah,
funny, but I think that that's good. Like if anything, this system had to become into existence simply because we all want to put
yeah.
data in. Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah, and I totally agree about like the way you described remote work because what happened during the pandemic was all these companies that weren't remote all of a sudden went remote and just because you're remote now, they weren't acting there's you can be remote but not be working remote, you know? Like
Not be a
I know
remote company at
people
all. Yeah. Yeah.
like I had some friends, they were working like one of them works at SAP in Montreal and he was on like meetings for hours like every day during the
Mm,
pandemic and I'm like, you know, to your point about over communicating and writing things down, you know, or if somebody misses a meeting, like we record all our meetings, you know, so like, hey, I
yeah.
couldn't catch it but thanks for the that,
Yeah.
you know, and it, you know, and it's like people just thought, okay, well, it's the same thing, but you're just at home now, and it wasn't. And I think that probably burnt out a lot of people that
Oh
were
yeah.
in
Oh
office
yeah.
originally. So yeah,
Yeah. No, no,
so
no. If you weren't properly trained or indoctrinated into remote work, I imagine it made tons of people hate it. Or
yeah,
some people like absolutely just figure out how to gamify it just to survive.
yeah,
Perhaps people just knew
totally,
like how to check in enough so that they could take the stress off of their own head. And what are they going to do? Like go out to a show or a bar? Like it was the
yeah,
pandemic. Like if
yeah,
you
yeah,
have stress,
exactly,
like
yeah,
that's where you were. You lived
yeah,
in the
totally,
house that caused the stress. And so hopefully some people formed barriers when that happened. That's really important for work. But if they didn't
yeah,
form barriers, then I don't know what to
yeah, yeah, no,
do.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, not that I
Yeah.
wanted to start talking about the pandemic because I think people
Oh,
would
dude, we can talk about
probably
anything, man. Yeah, just as long as we don't watch Bo Burnham's Inside, okay? Because I watched that all the way through, and it messed me up for days. Okay, like that brought back every pandemic feeling into one little show, and I was just like, "This is it. Like, I can never watch this again." It's so
no,
crazy.
yeah, totally.
But yeah,
Uh,
but
uh, sorry,
good.
go ahead. No, no, no.
Ah,
I
ah,
just made a funny face.
I was just gonna say, like, but like one of the things that you said that is you're starting to recently travel, kind of get out and about, and I think that that's super valuable for not only people who are in software. Like one of the funny things is like all these talks are online.
Yeah.
You've got to go to the conference. There's a reason why people still go, right? And that
Hmm.
is the hallway track. That's like so. Like we were talking about render last year, things like that. So I did a AI workshop last year, and actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to share this, but who knows? Whatever. I never signed an NDA. We were voted the best workshop at Render Atlanta. So they loved it. It was
That's
called
awesome.
AI in JavaScript. It was Jamin and I put it on, and we talked about just implementing all these cool AI concepts and putting them in JavaScript so that they can kind of go anywhere. This is the same thing we do
Hmm.
with what mobile apps, right? Like let's do React
Yeah.
Native, so we can do iOS, Android, and this and that. It's like let's take AI and put it in JavaScript, so we can put it anywhere JavaScript goes, which is
Yeah.
everywhere, and it just kind of makes it really nice as well. So what ended up happening is we, while I had the workshop, I think the workshop's recorded and you could watch it and something like that. You could tell if you ever were to watch it, it's more important to be in that room. It is so
Hmm.
valuable to be able to ask the questions, to be able to connect to the people next to you, to be able to have these moments. Videos and
Yeah.
pointing to blog posts work great, but there's something that is inimitable in being in connection. That's why I said like you've got to go meet these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
No.
just it
Totally.
sparks so much more creativity to be in that room, to have that conversation, to have your own opinion, be part of it, or ask your own questions. I got asked the toughest questions after my talk at Render last year. There was a crowd of people. I want to say like 10 people came up to me and wanted to talk after my official talk, not the workshop. And
Okay.
we had 10 people talking and one guy, like a lot of people were saying, like, we really like this, or want to know more about that. But one guy had the tough questions.
Okay.
And I love that he asked them. I love that he asked them. I love that he asked them in front of everybody, and in that the after group. I love that he was like really trying to get in there because you could tell
Mhm.
he cared. He cared so much. But for him to sort of open up his care towards learning more about AI, about bringing that stuff forward, about being part of where the architecture is going to go, he needed to
Yeah.
have these sort of railings put up and understanding that he wasn't like going down the wrong path or doing something immoral or doing other stuff like that. And he just asked these questions, and we talked for I want to say like 30 minutes afterward with everybody interspersed between,
Yeah.
and it was so valuable to have that, and you can't get that from YouTube video. Just like
Yeah,
remote work,
totally.
there's a level of like how much you can actually pay attention at any given time, how much you're connected, the bandwidth of being in person, talking to people, seeing their eyes, watching their hands. Oh,
Mhm.
so fantastic. So
Yeah.
I guess like maybe this is a PSA: go to conferences, go meet people, start networking.
Yeah, totally. And I'm a big fan of working remotely. Like I've been working
Yep,
remotely
me too.
like completely professionally since January 2020. Before that it was kind of partial, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't give it up for anything now, but the, in terms of the human connection,
Yeah.
like we
Come
had
to
an offsite
Render, come
for
to
yeah.
Chain React, come to other conferences, go to Connect
Yeah.
Tech, just meet Nick and I in person.
Yeah, and speaking of talks, like I didn't catch your workshop because I was on the frameworks team at Netlify last year, so
Oh
I
yeah,
only
yeah, yeah.
used one, but I did catch your talk, and what one thing I love about your talks, and like you were kind of like this when on the Dev 2 stream, I believe, but like y- you're very passionate about what you work on for sure,
Yeah.
and but you bring like funny theatrics to it as well,
Yeah.
and and they're great demos always, like the
Yeah.
one I think it's in the one from Dev. I'll drop the link to the episode. This is like from a
Yeah.
few years ago, but I think it was the one where remember you were using TensorFlow to warp images in the canvas
Yeah. 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 Actually,
and
we just got a lead the other day. Someone said in sales, they said they wanted to talk to
yeah.
us, and they said, "Where did you hear about us?" And they said, "TimeWarpScan.me." And
Yeah,
I was like,
that's
"Yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah."
Yeah,
It's really funny.
and you know, and it's a ridiculous app because it's like just
Hmm.
funny to warp your face and stuff, but I think these are the kinds of things that like it helps tell us like my coworker Becca always says it's like storytelling is important. It sure is because like
Uh-huh.
if you just go in and start talking about like these are the specs of React Native or this is a prop or like you're gonna lose your crowd real quick. But
Yeah.
like you come in with some like ridiculous or funny demo that demonstrates like this is what a tensor is actually doing to modify an
Hmm.
image, and at the same time it's like a fun thing to do, you know, and like I think I know for me at least, and I know I'm not alone in this, like having that mix of fun and a bit of a story to it helps it stick for me, I
Oh
find.
yeah. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and yeah, and like I'm not going to be at Render this year unfortunately, but like I was
What,
telling
Nick?
yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
I
Well,
know.
then I'll see you at either Chain React or Connect Tech, right?
I'm gonna make it to something for sure.
Okay.
But I was telling people like, oh yeah, I caught Gant's talk last year.
Yeah.
Like I've seen some of your talks online, but like seeing it in person, I was like, it was a banger. And I was telling them because
Thank you.
like Jason Torres from Tech Commute is gonna be there, and I said like you got to go to his talk. Like it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like hands down you got to go. And
I
but
appreciate it.
it's just a testament to like I don't know, kind of going on a tangent here, but like you're like you're a big proponent of public speaking and
Yeah.
you've told me this before like people look at you now and they're like, oh man, Gant, great speaker, you know, like so articulate and smooth and I think I can't remember when you told me this, but like you used to go to like Toastmasters and you were
Yeah.
not like you are these days, and
Oh
I
my
don't know if you want to
goodness,
talk
man.
about that a bit.
Sure, sure, sure. Absolutely. One key part is that one of the things you might notice is that when I'm on stage, I'm confident, I'm comfortable. Actually, I'd love to do a little bit of vulnerability and talking about my talk at
Yeah.
App.js Conf in Poland last week. If y'all are okay with
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
it's
that's
just.
yeah, I definitely wanna hear that for sure.
But in 2014, I would just have the biggest anxiety, panic attack at any time I had to talk in front of anybody, and that stewed from back in college, just in a philosophy class, standing up in front of people and freezing and not being able to talk in front of class, like 30 of my classmates. It's like crazy. If you look at me now, I've spoken at hundreds of places all over the world and in front of thousands of people at a time. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's a big difference between here and there. And
Yeah, yeah.
I really do owe that to Toastmasters because I went there. I was I went there to see somebody give a talk,
Yeah.
and then I realized that like this is a safe and welcoming place for me to kind of like get on the bicycle and like, learn how to do this
Mhm.
because I could fall over here and I'll be okay. And I just continued to go, and in 2020, from that
Mhm.
time to 2020, I got all the way through everything that they had, played all the roles they needed, and got to the highest level. It's sort of like the black belt of Toastmasters. It's called a
Okay.
distinguished Toastmaster. And
Yeah.
so in 2020, I became a distinguished Toastmaster. That's just from constantly going there, learning tips and tricks, going to the conferences, learning all the different pieces there, watching people talk, giving feedback. It was so much fun. And it just
Yeah.
like, I would say the fear of public speaking died within the first 6 months of me going to Toastmasters, but the
Okay.
art of public speaking took on after that. And now
Mhm.
I still go to Toastmasters. I actually help a bunch of people through their first talks. I help a bunch of people who are looking to grow in their leadership and public speaking skills. And I think, by the way, the district, which is like our state,
Okay.
is going to elect me to club growth director, which is like the third highest position in state for Toastmasters. And I'm going to continue to help them out and continue. If
That's
anybody
awesome.
ever has any trouble public speaking, and just tell you a little bit about App.js Conf. We
Yeah.
had
Yeah, let's hear
somebody.
about it.
I won't say their name because, but right before their talk, they were talking about how they were messing up and how it was a problem.
Mhm.
And then Toastmaster and me clicked into place. I started talking to them and telling them a couple of tricks, a couple of plans on how not to worry about it. And then, sure enough, during their talk, something went wrong for a second and they overcame
Okay.
it perfectly. And the talk went fantastic. And
That's awesome.
afterward, they came up and thanked me. And then another tidbit I want to tell you about App.js Conf is that those were App.js Conf, just for people to know, is like the expo
Mhm.
conference for React Native. And it's in Poland. And there's just the smartest people in the whole world there. Like they need tripods to hold their heads up on stage because they're super smart. And I was the last talk, and everyone was giving these amazing technical talks with graphs and charts and all this other stuff. And I actually
Okay.
started to have a little bit of, I could feel it, imposter syndrome start to show up. I was like, what
Okay.
is this? After all this time, it said, like, hey, Gant, you don't have any charts in your talk. And you're just going to talk about an open source library uh, with a few lines of code. What are you going to do here? And
Yeah.
I said, you know what? To go back, like what Becca said, people want a story. They want to
Mhm.
actually feel comfortable. They want to be able to follow it. It's easy enough to get up there and talk really smart and make people feel like they're disconnected. But
Mhm.
what I wanted to do is, so I got up there. My first slide that I had right after it is I said, number of charts in talks today, and it like had a bar graph that went to 8. And then I said like number of charts in this talk 1, and this is that chart. This is it. So set
That's
your
awesome.
expectations. And then I went into a story. It talked about a need that absolutely continues to happen that people feel. And then I went into the resolution, which was an open source library for document scanning, amongst other AI features. And I did
Okay.
a live demo, showed it to everybody. And I had so many people come up and compliment the talk. A lot of people very kindly said that it was their favorite talk of the entire conference. And what I did
That's awesome.
differently in any sense of this is I really told a story. And I think that
Yeah.
that's just so important. And it's funny with public speaking how difficult it is for you to like be like, I need to be smart enough. I need to have enough charts.
Yeah.
Like that came back into me after all this time, right? I'm gonna still have a few butterflies from a moment of, am I going to get up there and be the dumb American in the Polish conference, right? But no, it was the nature of people is consistent and the same. If you learn people, you learn them forever, and it's wonderful. If you learn technology, you're at the forefront of it for a day, you know. And I
Yeah,
think that it's really important for us to do both. But just remember, this knowledge for people carries, and the knowledge for technology um, abstracts.
yeah. No, that's great. And yeah, I know that I don't think those talks are live yet. I imagine they were recorded though.
Oh, yeah, they'll have them soon, and I hope that you
Okay,
get to
yeah,
watch. Yeah, they did have it. If you go to like day two of the conference and scroll to the time
okay,
marker, you could probably find it.
okay.
But yeah, you can see my beautiful chart and me on stage, and they
That's
had me as the
hilarious.
conference closer as well, which is a in public speaking, I care very much about when I'm speaking to people before lunch,
Okay,
after lunch, beginning of first day, beginning of second day, end of second day. You have to be able to fit the energy of the people there, and so I knew like the
yeah.
story style was going to be extra well received after,
Hmm.
if you want to do a technical talk first day, just throw numbers at people. They will follow you through the most complicated puzzle possible because they're running on
Yeah,
adrenaline connection and going to the conference. They love it. If you are the last talk on the second day, you better be ready to go ahead and have a little bit of humor, which my talk definitely
yeah, yeah,
had.
for sure. I
And a
can
cool
feel that.
demo.
Yeah, yeah. No, demos don't hurt, but yeah, I definitely feel that. Like, you know, you just run out of gas for whatever reasons. It could be you went to the conference party that night
Oh,
before, or
yeah, yeah.
or you're just tired. Like even though it's super exciting, it is draining still. I mean, I know it's a
Mhm.
privilege to go to a conference, but it like I'm
It's work.
extroverted, but like even Mr. Extrovert I was exhausted at the end of React Miami, and we also had our
Oh,
offsite
yeah.
for work, so it was like amazing. But yeah, last day I was starting to fade a bit on like one of the last talks. Not because it wasn't good, but I think it's more to
Yeah,
your point. Like, day
you gotta
one, this is the number five. Everybody's like amazing five, and then it's like day two, it's like
Day
but
2, here's a picture of everything exploding, and you're like, make more
it's
stuff
okay, I guess.
explode. I guess. I guess that's everything. Yeah,
Uh,
and it's so funny. But yeah, I love for people to reach out. Um, well, if they have any questions about React Native, of course, like that's always a fun one to talk to people about. If they have any questions about public speaking, I love helping
mhm.
people with that as well. And then, of
Yeah,
course, and the passion. Like I always have people messaging me about AI and all that other fun stuff. And so my talk actually had. Let me see if I have the demo right here. This is gonna be the most low quality way of showing you a demo here. But what I was just showing them is like an AI scan. Oh, you're not going to see anything, are you? I should have had this. So I'm just going to press the scan button, and then it's going to
okay, I
open up
can
the
see it
camera, and you
now.
see me.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me see if I can get a book here. This is fun. Let's just do it
okay,
live. You can see
okay,
that's finding the rectangle there for the book and actually
yeah,
detecting it. And so it's actually trying to figure out like where the book is and what the page is and everything like that. And then I didn't even press the button and notice like it's like, hey, I'm pretty sure this is a rectangle with information on it.
okay,
And then what's happening is like the AI detects rectangles, also does image correction, warping, scanning, and then the other thing is it
okay,
has magic eraser. So you see like there's this little spot up here. So if I
yeah,
go to clean, and then oh, actually my thumb's down here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove my thumb. So just do that right
okay.
there, and then it's gonna go ahead and change on that and just kind of do it. So all this features is like
That's
built in
cool.
there. Thumb's gone.
That's super
So
cool.
you've got like a really cool thing. And this is open source and just kind of showing people that. But look, how long was that? Right? That was me showing you in what, less than a minute what the demo
Yeah,
was. That means the other 29, or was it like a 25-minute? The entire rest of my talk was a story to make people care about what this can do. Right?
yeah. No,
Think about
totally.
it that way.
That's Yeah. No, and I kind of want to, because you were talking about AI, obviously. I kind of
Yeah.
want to dig into it a bit. I'm
Yeah. Let's do it.
slowly getting into AI, so like, and there's this kind of term that I think Swix Sean Wang might have coined it,
Yeah.
but the AI engineer, and like,
Oh,
I
yeah. Yeah. Doing the AI
I
engineer conference. Yeah.
I kind of it makes sense to me because like I'm not an academic. Like, I mean, I went to university, but
Mhm.
academia never interested me. Like,
Right, right.
I had to do math proofs in university, and it's like that is not something I would enjoy doing in my spare time, And and
Well, then hold on a second. I had something here for you. I was going to have you prove the sum of even numbers, but I'll throw that away. Okay.
it was always so much easier when you could just find one false answer, and then you're like, okay, yeah. So
It's
it
false.
just isn't possible. But anyways, I digress. Just want to
I want
say
nothing
hey
but proofs by induction now.
yeah. Um, just want to
Mhm.
say hey to Learner0418. How you doing? Great
Yeah.
to have you again. Excuse me. But yeah, I guess the way it is, I'm seeing it, and well, not seeing it, but this is like how Sean has
Yeah.
kind of conveyed it, and I think it makes sense. Like you're still gonna have those academics and the people building these large language models and
Hmm.
digging in all to the theory, neural network, and like going really deep.
Hmm.
And realistically, I don't see myself doing it. I think it's good to have
Yeah.
knowledge of these things to be aware of how it works, but like I kind of feel like there's gonna be this next generation of devs
Yep.
that like he termed the AI engineer, which is more kind of like, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, like the blue collar AI worker, because like honestly,
Well,
shout out to my plumber because like he's getting paid
yeah.
more than me, and he's never going away. So
Well, one way I'll take a look at it. I'll kind of try to clean up the AI plumber mentality, because that
okay,
is a great analogy and what it is. But there's this what I'll say is there's a business practical aspect of things, right? For instance,
yeah,
we build web pages for people, right? Sometimes, like, you might build a
yeah,
web page, or we build a mobile app for people, like, just
hmm
as developers, right? We build these things. We don't need to work on the new HTTP codes or new versions of that. You don't need to
yeah,
work on what's going to go into the next, like, document specs, or like what's going to be accepted, or whether
hmm
JavaScript's going to evolve and take on a new feature, or this or that. Those positions are fantastic, but
yeah,
they're terribly uh, removed from the application that people really care about. And you kind of see this sometimes when a company will come out with a new change in their open source. Either Google
hmm
will shut something down, or Meta will change an API or a way of thinking of things. It's like it's focused on the world that they're looking at, right? They're like, okay, we need to
yeah,
make this more functional, or make it this way. But then you've got this other thing where it's this practical application, that what I call the application developer, right?
yeah,
And so, where you'd say, like, maybe the plumber, I'd say, like, the application developer is the person who doesn't have to write every library that they
yeah,
use. They're not afraid of using a framework that they trust, understand, and if they needed to, they could go down there and, like, change and twiddle the knobs as they did. But
yeah,
their plan is like that. That's what makes them a great application developer, is that they can dive down if they need to, but they don't have to. And then, even then,
yeah,
how far they can dive, that varies wildly. And the more they can, the cooler it is that they could do something. But really,
yeah,
90%, if not more, of what they're doing is taking and understanding business application needs and understanding what's capable, and connecting those two. In that sense,
yeah,
becoming the AI plumber. But every application is like, if we had to all write all of our sort algorithms from scratch, we're stuck back in
yeah,
academia and non-practical, just
yeah,
like empty theory, right? And so
hmm
I do think that what is coming our way, the slow rolling machine of AI, is going to be like, know what's possible and be able to connect these things together. And so that when I'm talking to you about certain features of an LLM, you're not saying for the first time, you're like, what the hell is a token, right? Like, you
yeah,
understand why, at least to a certain degree, or how to generate tokens, and then you understand how to generate the ones that work for that particular LLM. You understand you can't just bring in another one. You like a little bit of the
yeah,
architecture at a high level. And I think that that's really where the application and the use is going to be for the rest of the world, is
hmm
because someone's going to come to your company and say, "Hey, I want to make people be able to filter out all photos of themselves, and
hmm
then just get emails of photos that are of them. I know you
yeah,
could do
yeah,
this with AI. do it. And you're not going
Mhm.
back writing like Gaussian algorithms for facial landmarks. You're just implementing libraries and saying like, okay, this is person recognition package or something like that
Yeah,
that I'm bringing in
exactly.
and I'm applying. And that's honestly where the rubber hits the road for AI and where we're all going to be. And that's why
Mhm.
I tell people like, be ready for it now. There's no not learning correctly. It's
Yeah.
not like tomorrow all the terminology that you learned is going to become useless. It's actually going to evolve, correct, but you'll understand those new concepts as a combination of previous concepts. And if you take a look
Yeah.
at neural networks, dude, it just I almost want to like show you some like diagrams and things like that, but we've all seen you have inputs and you have a densely connected set of networks of neurons and it comes out with like a result. You have like this
Yeah.
crazy looking graph, but what happens is as soon as we got to images and we had to like break those into it, those go into multiple dimensions
Yeah.
results. And so like the visual, we had to like sort of like flatten it down for it to make sense and kind of do stuff. And you can't sit there and do the math by pen anymore. And
Yeah.
now you get into transformers with attention layers and things like that. We can kind of like make up what those look like and explain some of the concepts, but it's so cool because like I want ultimately it always ends up back at that graph that you could actually solve with a pen and paper in high school math. But there's
Mhm.
all these other pieces between here and there that we have to abstract down. So you have to understand the basics in order to understand the next piece and the next piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's yeah, and there's just a lot of it's still early days for me, but like because we're
Mm-hmm.
using AI in our product now, and I've
Mm-hmm.
been working more on because I'm pretty much leading front end over there. We have somebody, my coworker John, who used to work at AWS. He's more into infra and like deep back end stuff, so he's been focusing on implementing the actual AI stuff. But
Yeah.
it's been fun consuming it because like we have this like like a lot like a chat gpt we have a similar thing but like we're pulling in actual components now so like I know based on what's coming in the response I can actually say dynamically load a react component and inject it in so it gives you it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like if it doesn't work for some reason we don't show it but if it does that gives you better context to what you were
Yeah.
asking and stuff like that. This is more like getting to your point about like the app developer like that's the kind of things I'm starting to see and like but I am starting to dig more into it even you know I, I'm curious of your thoughts on like prompt engineering because like
Mm-hmm.
I've been definitely digging into that too but it's not necessarily like uh, it's something that's definitely required because and this is something I kind of thought about a lot like I treat chat gpt or like copilot as like kind of like my rubber ducky that I used to actually rubber duck with, or like when you chat with somebody, I literally chat with it and say like, that's right,
Yeah.
no, that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing I've noticed about it is it's implicitly forced me to communicate better
Yes.
because
Yeah. It makes
which
sense.
is pretty
If you
cool.
think about
Yeah.
it in a certain degree, when, when we're working with these tools, we're actually working on our storyteller skills.
Yeah.
We're telling it something, we're finding out where in a feedback loop where it's not clear and
Yeah.
where it doesn't understand exactly what we're trying to connect with. And then we become more clear with that. And we kind of do that through software in a sense. You have that old
Hmm.
trick that they used to be like, write an algorithm for me to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich. And then you
Yeah.
would like poke holes in what they say. It's like, well, first of all, get peanut butter and put it on bread. You just take a GIF and just stick it on
Yeah.
top of bread and be like, you didn't tell me to open it, right? And so,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
as human beings, we're like, okay, well, yes, I'm taking some of these things for granted. I have to understand my audience and I have to, like, figure out how to bring them along with me so that we can get the conclusion that we're looking for. And you're doing the same exact thing with LLMs. You're finding out where you need to be more clear, where you need to reference things, where people and AI might forget, they'll lose context, and bringing it back in as a set of bullet points to reaffirm what's going on. Same thing happens in speeches. There's the classic tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what that you told them, right? Like it's this
Hmm.
kind of process of what you're supposed to do when you're guiding people along in a story. It's the same
Yeah.
thing that we're doing here with AI, and it feels weirdly natural and a little humbling when you're sitting there like, no, this is what I mean, this is what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
And you have like the world's most intelligent AI sitting on the side like trying to understand you. And I think that that's what prompt engineering turns into. Yeah, there's a bunch of tips and tricks, but the truth is, those are going to change over time. It's going to
yeah,
be more embedded into it. If you remember, like the original ChatGPT, which is generative text, you would have to like start the story,
yeah,
and then like have it sort of like continue on. Like I'll start something and you have to continue this process because it's generating based off of the conversation that you're kind of like making happen. But then we figured
yeah,
out like don't do that. Like we'll handle that. We'll have like system prompts and user prompts and things like that, and then we'll just make it a little bit
yeah,
easier. And then like now you write something like, oh, and if you do this right, I'll give you a tip. I'll give you some cash. Like, and then it's like, oh, well, it works extra hard to go ahead and like get you an answer because the data it was trained off of was like incentive based. So then it is also incentive based. And then what
hmm
ends up happening is like we will find those things integrated into the process. And then, the most key aspect is not memorizing a bunch of tips and tricks, but just becoming better communicator.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's well said.
Yeah.
And just wanted to mention in the
Yeah.
chat over on YouTube, Helen Akoya, I think is her last name. It's her first time joining my stream, but she says she's loving the conversation.
Awesome.
So it's
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like and it's moving so fast now. And you were talking about
Hmm.
like open source and AI before, and I was curious about your thoughts on this. Like a large language model, there's no way I could ever house like open AI's models in
Right.
my house, because it's just the CPU and GPU power,
Yeah.
it's enormous. So like and so like there's a lot of models out there now, like Olama and
Llama.
stuff,
Yeah.
but they're not as large
Right.
necessarily. And I'm curious about your thoughts, because you were talking about like like because it's it's kind of impossible to make those large language models open source for the sheer reason that of the,
Mhm.
I mean, I guess maybe you could open source some of it, but like
Yeah.
there's no way somebody who's not a large company could ever run those things. So like,
Yeah.
so it's like I'm curious about your thoughts on that, because about in
Yeah.
terms of keeping things honest, it's I feel like it's a tough question to or
Yeah.
discussion.
Well, what I think is going to happen is it's really cool to feed this model like the whole internet, and just kind of get that set up and just the
Yeah.
difference between like GPT-2 and GPT-3 is just like the size of the data. And then here we are, we're like push the size of the data, push the size of the data, go for size. And the
Hmm.
reason that that's where we're at is because that's what's moved the needle, right? We
Yeah.
found that putting more and more information through transformer models, we're able to kind of get these pieces to be more and more cognizant, intelligent, and capable. But at the same time, there's never been an initiative because we didn't have like I call it it's called from the inmates are running the asylum. He calls it the dancing bear. And he's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
now we're just happy that we're capable of doing this. We don't care about the size. We just want to make it happen.
Hmm.
But, if you take a look at just normal, like we'll go back to vision models just for a moment there.
Yeah.
Vision models were huge and had lots of data. And actually, one of the easiest ways to quickly train a model was to like kind of have the vision be part of the model's data and like a k nearest neighbors, like sort of like model structure. What happens is like the size is like a cheat, right? And then you
Hmm.
have the way to sort of we have to figure out they had algorithms like dropout to figure out which neurons were actually more useful than others to make it less dependent on one particular neuron.
Okay.
Quantization, which means like the numbers that they're using on each parameter are huge numbers. But one of the things you can
Yeah.
do is use an integer and rather than a UI int 32 or something like that. So like just use
Okay.
something that has smaller accuracy, but rebalance the machine so that way it's more accurate. So it kind of has these things. So what we're
Okay.
finding out is that with these sparse large language models, there's a bunch of dead space that still kind of plays a part in it, but shows the validity of potential compression.
Okay.
And so there's this ability that I think that you're seeing with Llama getting more and more intelligent. There's also a drive that in the business nature, how important is it that if you were to do a language model for your website, that it knows that there's a pizza place in Detroit? Here's the phone number, right?
Yeah, 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 totally.
So there's this whole concept of like carving out what the actual articulate landscape for possibly solving a problem domain would be. And it's weird
Hmm.
to try to kind of like figure out how to find that moment. How do you kind of clip that off and say like this information exists in a larger one but does shouldn't exist for this one? And then
Yeah. Okay.
that's the also the huge expense in that we have in the idea of like retraining or doing fine tuning for models that exist particular for your domain. Like you want to make an expert at, you know, your website, or you want to make an expert at your product. Well, guess what? The large language models are already doing that. There already
Okay.
are like when the questions come in, identifying which model it should be, because you know that there was like coding models versus language models, things like that. Well, the answer is just like make these the experts in their field, and then have
Hmm.
one model that tells it which one to kind of go to. And the truth is, once we start getting these experts can be condensed in their own sense, in their own rights, and kind of made smaller. And I do think that like the final phase of all this will most likely be a large language model chip. Like someone will create an
Okay.
API, an interface that will come along, just like we have AI chips on our phones. One day you might get like an 80 terabyte large language model chip that sits on there that could be hydrated with particular parameters and concepts to go ahead and be perfect for the phone. Because if you think about it, it's like we used to speak to our phone, it would go off to a server and then come back with what the language was. Now we have
Yeah.
sort of this hybrid connection where your phone actually figures out what you're saying, but also does do a network connection to sort of like do a correction, like a smaller correction
Okay.
on what's
Yeah.
going on there, things like that. So you might actually speak to your phone, see it do everything like almost perfectly. Wait a second, and then you see like a section update to exactly what you said. Right? There's a
Okay.
moment where the phone's doing its on device training, and then it's sending out the questionable, the low proximity ones out to go ahead and get fixed up and kind of sent back.
Okay.
So now we're using less on the server. So I think a hybrid and a much more push towards client architecture will definitely come along. We'll see
Yeah.
this happen very soon because now we know it's possible, right?
Yeah.
Now we're going to go after it. Are you familiar with the story about the 4 minute mile?
I'm not so, and I love a good story,
Oh
so
yeah, this is
I'm here
so
for it.
for a long time, and I'm gonna forget all the names because this is a story I have not heard in a long time or read about in a while. But it was understood like you can't run a 4 minute mile. Like no one wants to do it. Nobody cares to get it done. It would be a world
Okay.
record kind of thing. And then widely published, and Set was the first person who ran a 4 minute mile. And then that same year, I think like three other people then ran a 4 minute mile because
Okay.
someone did it. They showed it was possible. They showed that yes, if you train hard enough, you go after it, you could be one of the few people
Yeah.
that does this. You same thing with the advancement towards flight. These are things we have these aha moments that sort of like set everybody like say, oh my god, this is possible. Now let's perfect it. And then we're going to continue to create programs, and the application team is going to
Yeah.
bring these in and ask for new API features to interact with which model they're going to need. And we're going to see the refinement of LLMs directly on device at some point.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And like, I think people forget sometimes how powerful your phone is.
Mhm.
It's like it's mind-boggling how fast and how much you can like even store on a phone now and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think it's like any technology, people, just forget about it. Like every now and then I still think about like I'm microwaving something. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, you know, it's a
That's
very
good. That's a
boring
good feeling,
feeling.
Nick. Yeah.
Yeah,
Be
but
grateful
it's
for the
like
fantastic
yeah.
things we had. Yes.
Yeah, because it's there's just a lot of things I think we forget about, um, but I'm glad you brought us on this path of like AI and mobile
Hmm.
because it kind of ties into some stuff we wanted to discuss too, like
Yeah,
uh,
sure.
um, obviously you work a lot in the mobile space, and I think a lot of stuff people are on their phones, on their tablets all the time now. Like us as devs, I think we're more so on like a laptop or maybe a
Yeah.
desktop, but
Yeah.
like, my family members, they're all
Oh
on
my
tablets
goodness.
and phones,
And they can
and
type so much faster than me. And it's like
yeah,
they're just like, I'm just like, oh my god, I can't believe you're on a phone. Your whole world's this little window right here. Like, I
yeah,
need
you're
three
like,
monitors right now. Okay, Nick. Like, give me.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've turned into the phase where I have all my texts like huge. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
like the
yeah,
guy's like, make it bigger. Like, I'm not there yet, but I can tell. Like, when I look at phones and people are just like this, I'm just like, oh. Whew, not ready for that.
yeah,
But it did so cool because the UI that can be created on there can be so enveloping, like just like
yeah,
TikToks and things like that. Just this scroll mentality, easy to message, easy to connect with people. We continue to like figure out this amazing, cool world of interconnected devices that we have soon to go into VR, etc. as well.
yeah. That's a whole other space,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. Like I'm curious, like you know, building AI features in a product, and I
Mhm.
forget where I heard this, but it was on Twitter or maybe it was on LinkedIn, but somebody said like, you know, put AI into your products, but don't say you have AI in your products.
Yeah.
I mean, like you can literally
You
mention
gotta
somewhere,
be
but like,
careful.
like
Yeah.
just because you registered a .ai domain, all of a sudden it's like pivot, we're
Yeah.
an AI company. It's like,
I,
uh,
it's
you
it's
know,
it's it's a improvement tool, right? And this is the thing that
yeah,
drives me crazy, Nick. I had like went to this one chat box and I had a problem. I started typing, but it was pretending to be a person. It didn't say like, "Hey, I'm
okay,
AI. I'm like I'm here to hopefully help you out before we bring you to a person, possibly solve
yeah, yeah,
80% of your problems." It was like, "Hello, my name is Jacob." And I was just like, "All right, yeah, that's cool. Hey, Jacob, how you doing? Glad I got somebody super fast." Started talking. Within seconds, I realized this is not a person and just didn't understand what the hell I was talking about. But it was trying to mask as a person, and it
yeah,
just what a terrible way to use AI. What a terrible
mhm,
experience. What a terrible like sort of way to do this. So I have a website called Not Safe for Work JS, which is a whole library that we did.
yeah,
And the idea behind the library is it catches indecent content automatically. It can flag it for you, right? And when I talk to people about it, is like do not do what was the website that audited like automatic indecent content checking? It did a terrible job.
yeah,
They would upload a
okay,
picture of a toaster and they're like, your picture of a toaster is bad and you should feel bad. Get the hell out of here. You have indecent content. We're not posting it at all, or anything like that. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like, what? Why did you think this was a great idea? That's not where the technology is. It's actually like
yeah,
the model I made was 93% accurate, and a human being's 99% accurate.
mhm,
So you've got this huge divergence between what's there. The trick is people like Meta and stuff like that, they can hire entire teams of people to go into nightmare mode and look at all these photos and see if they're
yeah,
real or not, like cancel them or uncancel. And those people go home like traumatized. And my goal is like smaller companies or just like a conference or something like that doesn't have a team of
yeah,
people like, but you have to implement it the right way. Like if I were to send you, if we had a conference app, right, and you
yeah,
were implementing Not Safe for Work JS, which would work on the client side, which is part of the reason why you can have a server project or you can have a client project. Client projects
okay,
aren't going to require any extra power because it's running on device. And
okay,
so when it runs on device, like I'm not running out the bill if I'm just trying to upload 1,500 photos here for you. It's
okay,
like,
yeah, yeah,
hey, so, what the ideal experience for something that's like this would be, and this is where the storyteller would have figured this out. This is where somebody, a developer being in the room, would have said, like, yo, what are you doing? Right? Like, the ideal experience should be I go
yeah,
to upload a photo and it runs it through the scan and says, hey, um, like our AI kind of like said for better or worse that this is like not the best content. It actually potentially violate some of these things. This could be
yeah,
a false positive. Click false positive if you think it is, and then what we'll do is we'll have a manual review and we'll kind of like have this go over it, and then it'll be fine. Or like
okay,
click that, and then what happens is when they click which one it is, or decline the thing, And if they click false positive, guess what happens? That image if it's in the right terms of service, could go into the training set to improve the model over time and actually make
Okay.
it better.
Okay.
Here's where your false positives are. Here's where your bias is. Create reports and improve the model. Wouldn't that be
Hmm.
fantastic? Or on the other side, like if I'm a real small company, I could just have like I'm at a conference and I get a chat and it comes through and it says like, "Hey, um, Mr. Wheeler sent you a photo. We've blurred it out because we're 97% sure you shouldn't want to see this. But
Yeah.
you're a human. If you know this person and he sent you this picture, you could press this button and unblur the photo and then not even like collect the data or anything like that. And then that way, like I'd still enjoy that experience. I'd be like, hey man, like your picture set off the indicator or something like that. I had to click the button, undo it or something like that. That
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
a really great experience. It doesn't cost any money. It's running on the device, and everybody knows that it's AI and that it's fallible, and it's okay. Uh, but
Yeah.
if I but if I had a website, it's like your toaster is not up. Like you should feel bad, and you've got a violation. Like nobody likes AI then, right? Like it just
Yeah.
feels terrible. Like the first job you don't want to give AI robots is like to be an AI dentist or carrying glass around or like feeding your children. Like, who's thinking of this as the right idea, right? Like, let's
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
ahead and let's ease into this, and then we have to figure out where fits into things, and that's what app developers are thinking of, and that's what they're doing.
Hmm.
Is like the academics, like, well, technically, we can convert for type one bias and type one errors and change this. It's like, no, well, that's fine, but like, given what the stats are, given what's going on here, this is how we could best implement this. That it's friendly and approachable.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, it's yeah, and it's like in terms of the like chat prompts and stuff, like a couple things there, but like you said, like that particular company, whatever it was, they should have just said,
Awesome.
"I am an AI assistant,"
Yeah,
instead of because then right away you'd be like, "Okay, fine," and you know how it's gonna kind of go, maybe, and like,
yeah. Doesn't know what I'm
yeah.
talking about. I just type representative until somebody shows up, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I had to do recently for my phone company. It was like it's just because like I understand why they do these things. It's just, I used to work at a call center, and so
Right.
like you would always be routed to certain places. Like I get what they're doing, but it's like a bad experience for a
It's
customer.
so easy to make it so much better. To say, like, look,
Yeah,
we've got a wait time, but I'm going to try to take care of you during this wait time. Like, I've
yeah,
been trained on all this great information. I could reset your router or change this or look up your account or kind of explain some extra fee that you're asking questions about. I can
yeah.
do all these things and at the worst case, I'll pass on everything you've worked on with me to the person that you get
Hmm.
connected to. Let me see if
Yeah,
I can help you. Oh, I'm in. Thank you, AI. I love this. This
yeah.
is wonderful. Thank you so much. But it was like, hi, I am Jacob. I help problems. Hey, Jacob, I see this weird expense right here. Are you having a question about your account? Yes. What is your question about your account? Like, oh God, just get out of here, Jacob.
Yeah, yeah. No, totally. Yeah, the way you're describing it, I feel like it's more like AI can just give you some superpowers or knowledge that can unblock you, but you can still go to a human, and it's like because I did the same thing when my phone company's typically really good, but I was in Honduras on vacation and I have like an eSIM when I travel because I know it
Hmm.
costs way less. And for
Yeah.
some reason the roaming kicked in even though I was on
Hmm.
eSIM and I had roaming off.
Yeah.
So and then like when I got back it was like Jacob, but then I just kept saying I kept typing like human or speak to
Human.
someone. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, human. And it worked eventually, but
Yeah.
like they should
Yeah.
just I don't know. Again, and
Let
this
me
ties
let me
into
kind of
yeah.
like go ahead and then like tell you when this thing is not working for me. You know what it is? And I talk to a lot of businesses about how AI can enter their products. It's got to raise the quality of life.
Yeah.
Neat features, interesting things. Look, I can do this. Oh, look, we can cut costs here and do this and that. No. Like, the truth is, like, you might have to add AI to your product and it might cost you a lot more. You want to know why?
Yeah.
Because you need to go ahead and swim in the new ocean that's coming with all the other people who can do the same thing. right?
Yeah.
People are looking for AI to cut costs and look to the other parts, but the problem is we will always look for a quality of life increase in what we can do. And if
Yeah.
your AI is not adding to the feature set to make it a higher quality event, then
Mhm.
nobody actually wants it. And I think that's another thing, right? Like you've got to be in that room and talking about whether or not you would use that. Or sure, you can cut
Yeah.
costs and lay off half your call staff, but has anybody like tested whether this thing's just going to irritate everybody and then
Yeah.
annoy the half of the call staff that you still have and make their life even worse and torpedo the product?
Yeah.
Like this is a much more complicated problem than, oh, we'll just replace people. That's an absolutely terrible way of
Yeah.
looking at things. Archaic
Yeah.
and terrible.
Yeah, totally. And this kind of ties into like another question, kind of as I know we're
Hmm.
close to
Yeah,
time here, but
just having a
you know,
blast chatting with you, man. This is fun.
yeah, yeah, I could totally talk to you all day, but I do have to do work again at some point.
Oh yeah, well
But
I'll see you at a conference then. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I was gonna say, like, it, it's the common stereotypical stuff that keeps coming up. Like there'll be Terminator memes or whatever, like AI is
Yep.
coming, and like people fearful for their jobs, and like I can't speak to other industries, but like in our industry, like I've kind of taken the mentality that you've kind of been talking about through this whole conversation, which is like embrace it and
Yeah.
like, you know, leverage the tooling and just go with it. And I think you'll still be fine that way. Like I do, like, to be realistic, I think some people will lose jobs because certain things,
Mhm. Well, the jobs will
like,
evolve.
yeah, evolve. But yeah,
The
it's kind of
jobs
it's
will
like,
absolutely evolve, and I will contend with this moment and just saying like the way that jobs will evolve will be better for everybody because like there's some spots where we want humans to take care of things, and
mhm,
what do people hate doing, and then like let's give it that to computers. There's a reason why
yeah,
spreadsheets like do all this insane amount of math and headache that we used to have like a person sit there and be accountable for. It would make like a mistake on line 17 and it would go through to
yeah,
like 20 different things because they typed the wrong number in their calculator once and people have to check that. And then the quality of life for everybody was just sitting there looking for these damn numbers to make this like mistake go away,
yeah,
to find that extra penny or something like that. And you have spreadsheets, right? Like, well, did accountants go away when spreadsheets showed up? No, it's very different. The job's
yeah,
very different. They're no longer sitting there hating every single task that they have. And I can come up with about 100 examples of things where
mhm,
AI would make a job easier and or better to focus on the parts that are more important rather than
yeah, 100.
sitting there and like solving every single like little piece of a problem like we used to have to do.
Yeah, totally. Like I definitely see it being like I can focus on the actual problems instead of like, oh, I've got to type
Yeah,
another mapping over some items in a React
yeah,
component, like that's
yeah.
that's where stuff like I see Copilot shining a lot of the
Copilot,
boilerplate
absolutely.
stuff, or code
You got to
generation
jump
tools.
into a new programming language for a second, like what React Native's cores and C++, right?
Yeah.
I don't know when's the last time you wrote some C++, but for me it was a while ago. But
Same.
I wouldn't mind a little bit of help in
Yeah,
going
yeah.
in there and making a small change without me having to go buy a learn book and reading it over the next 30 days to come back and make that one change. My client's
Yeah.
happier, I'm happier, the world's happier. So, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great point in where that kind of help is beneficial.
Yeah, no, and I'm honestly like, I say this all the time, but I really do mean it. Like it's just such an exciting time to be
Mhm.
a dev right now,
Yeah.
and it's like a kid. I feel like a kid at a candy store, and there's like so much
Yeah.
stuff I haven't even touched yet, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's I I feel like it could be intimidating for newcomers because there's so much
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
now, but I think if you can somehow batten down the hatches and go along for the ride, it'll be worth it. But
It's
yeah,
exactly, when we were kids, the remote control was magical, right? You were just like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
point it at something and you press a button, and then this other thing just sort of knows, or you have a walkie-talkie or a radio, like, it's this magical thing. And I find that same sort of oh my goodness, I'm talking to my daughter about like what Bluetooth is. She's four and a
Yeah,
half years old, and I'm just like, I'm older than Bluetooth. I've watched it turn into a thing. I'm like, oh
yeah,
my goodness, this must be so difficult. Like she's got so much to learn in order to just catch up to like today's world. But then,
yeah,
you go back to it, like, how much did you have to actually know every single aspect? Did you have to build a radio to use a radio? Do you have to build a car to use a car? Like, no.
yeah,
We get to choose the spots where we want to go deep. We get to choose the parts where we can become the architect or we can become the craftsperson and kind of make those things happen. And I think that
yeah,
that
totally.
is it's kind of beautiful and amazing, especially for nerds like us, right?
Yeah,
You can go into the deep etymology of one particular piece of technology. I can go into another, and then we can go on a show like this and talk about it.
yeah. No, that's great, and I think that's kind of a a great way to kind of wrap things up.
Hmm.
This has been awesome, Gant. Like I said, I could
Okay,
literally talk
fantastic.
to you the rest of the day, but
Let's go
I'm
to
gonna
a
drop.
conference, man. I'll see you at one of them
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah.
Come to
I
Chain React
gotta.
if you can.
Yeah, I'm gonna see what I can do there.
Yeah,
I'm gonna drop some
perfect.
links where people can give you a follow, and also
Mhm.
for folks interested in all things React Native, check out Infinite Red, and they're doing all kinds of great stuff in open source.
Yeah.
I dropped a link to I think I dropped a link to Ignite, but I'm gonna drop it again.
Oh yeah,
But
fantastic.
yeah, it's a great project. Like I even though I haven't done a ton of React Native, it actually got me out of the gate pretty
Yeah.
quickly, and so yeah, so check that out. Aside from that, let's see here. Just gonna check the streaming schedule just to let folks know,
Mhm.
all kinds of people. Um, just a quick check here. All right. Okay, that's not loading right now. Okay. Well, anyways, we got all kinds of great folks. I know my old coworker Eduardo Bucas from Netlify. Gonna be hanging with him on I think June 12th. Gonna be
Ooh,
digging into some Netlify primitives. Gonna be chatting
nice.
with an old manager about like leadership and also
Ooh.
weightlifting. All kinds of stuff. So,
I
anyways,
love these topics, man. You got some good
yeah,
ones coming up.
yeah. So, but yeah. So, thanks again, everybody, for hanging. And Gatton, if you just don't mind staying on for just one sec,
You
and
got it. I'll stick around.
okay, cool. All right, we'll see y'all in the next one.
Cheers, y'all.